guys, as you can see, this is the school that I went to. And this is pretty much the classroom, I call it a classroom, that I attended. Pretty much 5 years of my educational activities in there. Now, it's not the exact one, but it's pretty much exactly the same size and probably as much the condition of the actual place that I stayed in. Now, you probably know if you went to school in the kind of the 80s and the 90s, that there was portacabins put up, and what they were meant to be put up for is kind of a temporary accommodation to allow obviously students to go in there while they were doing renovations within the school. However, this portacabin was situated literally in the middle of the school playing field, right adjacent to all of the windows. So as you can see from the school that I showed you, the windows all faced out to this portacabin. Now, this portacabin, the children that went there, now this is their words, not mine, and something that I would never ever use, but they said that that was where the troubled children went. Okay, so which sounds really, really terrible. So it was a case of children that they didn't really know what to do with, children that were kind of, they called disruptive in class. But, you know, we know with dyslexia and ADHD that, you know, disruption can come in, you know, many, many forms. It could be down to the sheer fact of the frustration. So the teachers would primarily take the children out of that classroom and put them in this thing called the unit. Now, I was put in there for most of my education, so most of my secondary school education. So, and you can imagine, I was given literally colouring in books to keep myself occupied and kind of dot to dot. I had endless amounts of substitute teachers given to me on a regular basis. And I think all their job was really to do was to kind of just make sure that I stay there. And I guess it was kind of like a childcare situation where they would just kind of make sure I was safe and look after me. There was no kind of educational element involved in there in any way, shape or form. But guys, I digress. So how did I get into the unit? So it all started off, as you can see, this was me in my all nice and smart and kind of really excited to go to secondary school, which was, if you're listening to this in America, then it's take it, it's high school. And I always struggled in kind of the last year of my primary school, before I went up to the secondary school, or high school as you would put it. I struggled with some of the exams that they kind of give me, some of the tests. And I didn't know at the time that they were giving me the tests to kind of get me ready to find out what class I was going to be sitting in the big school. And I always remember those kind of last few months really kind of being a little bit kind of a little bit stressful. Some of the exams that they're giving me, or some of the tests that were giving me, you know, they would, you know, words would move around. I'd feel a little bit frustrated, maybe a little bit tired, a bit exhausted. But again, I didn't really know why I was given these tests. But lo and behold, I was given the tests, and off I went. I remember my very first day walking into school. And what basically happened is I went to school with my friends, a lot of the friends that I left with primary school into secondary school. We all walked together, went into the school. And I always remember, you know, that first day, I'm sure you can always remember as a child, you know, you're just really small. You know, you go from the primary school era where you're kind of a big fish in a little pond, and then you go to this secondary school and you are a little fish in a big pond. And I just remember kind of just looking up and thinking, my goodness, this school is massive, and there was just hundreds and hundreds of students. Now, I remember we went straight into the school assembly, and you had to sit down, and the teachers would give this assembly where they would introduce the teachers, and we'd all sit there. And at the very end of the assembly, they had this list, and this list consisted of all the names of the students that were in this, hundreds of students that were in this assembly. And what they would do is they asked them to, once their name is called, go with the teacher that is associated with the classroom. So I remember all these names being pulled out, and the process seemed to go on forever. And the teachers all kind of took their students and went, and each one by one, all of my friends that were around me started to go into separate classrooms. When I say separate classrooms, it was separate from me, but all of the friends that I left primary school with and walked to school with that day, had left into the same classes, and it was just me that felt a little bit isolated. And I remember looking around, and there was kind of probably about 6 of us, and because it was a very big hall, we were all kind of dotted around, all singular. Now I remember looking up and looking around and seeing the other students, and then there was one teacher at the very end, and they all called our names, and all 5 of us, 5 or 6, went into this classroom. And I remember from day one feeling that anxiety around separation from the off, because I just didn't really understand why I was segregated from my friends. I didn't understand why, what this list was. All these things were going on. And, first day of school was very, very daunting. So went into this classroom, and we spent most of the day in this classroom, not really doing much, really. I mean, there was a couple of other little tests that we had to sit. And then I kind of left that classroom. At the end of the day, the school bell went, and I kind of walked home with my friends, and I started to feel a little bit they were all kind of talking about all the different lessons they had, the science, the maths, the humanities, all these different lessons. And for me, I just stayed in one classroom throughout the entire day, pretty much, while the teachers were kind of doing what they needed to do, didn't really know what to do with me. So, cut a long story short, a lot of the years that I spent in my secondary school education was in this, it was either I was allowed to sit art, drama, and PE, so physical activity, as in games, but the core lessons, English, maths, science, all these other core lessons that you would think, English that you would need, I wasn't really allowed to attend them. I'd go to the odd lesson, get kind of fall behind, find things a little bit difficult. Then they would pull me out and put me in this thing, as I showed you again, this thing called the unit. Now, as I said, I spent 5 years in this kind of place, not really being given the opportunity to learn, not given the opportunity to flourish and be creative. And these were quite tough, because we know in secondary school education, or any form of education, all you want to do is you're at that age where you just want to fit in. You just want to kind of fly underneath the radar and just not be singled out. Now, this separation that was given to me on a daily basis singled me out, because not only did I have to go to the unit on a daily basis to pretty much do nothing, just kind of buy time and waste time. When the school bell went and break times, I would still come back out into the school playfield and try and kind of build friendships and relationships, in the sense of, with all your friends. And this was very, very difficult. Now, at the end of school, as in when the 5 years kind of came up, I was really excited, because I knew that, one, the school was kind of coming to the end, and that I would have an opportunity to go out into work, and maybe that would be different. Maybe I would have, be included in this. And I always remember we had obviously our exams, which in those days was the GCSEs, and I remember waking up that morning and just for feeling kind of just a little bit different that day, because I knew that I would go into a different classroom. I would get maybe some exams given to me. It would just be something different. However, on entering the school, going into the main hall, looking at the boards where every single person's name is up there, and what classrooms they're going to be, what exams they're going to be taking, what exam hall they're in, and so on and so on. I remember frantically kind of searching for my name. And it was at that point that one of the teachers at the time came behind me and literally tapped me on the shoulder and said to me, and these were words, and I'll never forget these. He said, "Clark, your name's not up there." He said, "You're not taking any exams. It would be a waste of paper." Now, to tell a child that when they're in front of their friends and everyone else, was humiliating. Okay, it was very, not a very nice thing to say. So then what I had to do, because the substitute teacher wasn't obviously being used somewhere else, because obviously these were the exams. What they did is they put me in a classroom with windows adjacent to where everyone else was taking the exams. Okay, so I could see them taking exams. They could see me with a colouring in book or a dot to dot, keeping myself busy, kind of out the way, and obviously colouring in and doing some form of activities while everyone else was taking their exams. Now, I look back on school, and the biggest thing that I miss was that kind of I have a real yearning for learning. Okay, I didn't mean that to rhyme, but I crave learning. You know, I always say I'm like a sponge every single day. I wake up wanting to kind of learn more and educate myself. So I feel like I've missed out on so many years of just learning things. Okay, but when I say I'm a massive advocate of the educational system now, with regards to dyslexia and ADHD that I kind of have, and neurodiversity, the things that I'm doing globally to work with organizations and schools, I know there is a huge amount of work still to be done within the educational system. But what I firmly believe is that every single child should have the opportunity to have an education. So yes, the educational side of it, I can't go back on that. That's something that's, you know, was kind of taken from me. However, it hasn't stopped me being someone who wants to learn and wants to give back and help in every single way. So guys, I've been on kind of a bit of a global mission, setting up this channel, Neurodiversity Stories, sharing people's neurodiversity stories. But I also work with, like I said, with organizations, and obviously I've been working with the educational system. So I've spoken to just over 85,000 students over the years, speaking to them about business, entrepreneurship, but also around dyslexia, ADHD, and neurodiversity. As you can see from this picture, these are I've worked with from secondary schools to primary schools to youth projects. It's endless, from this country to lots of other countries as well. So my message here for you guys is, just because you have a bit of a bumpy start and a bit of a rough start with when you start with the educational system, it doesn't mean that you can continue down that path. Yes, that was kind of taken from me, but it's what you do afterwards that makes the difference. Guys, I hope you enjoyed or can relate to any of the stories I've got. I'd love to hear your comments in the feed. That's kind of a little bit of a story around my journey within the educational system. It hasn't stopped me from being the person I am today. I just guess it was a bit of a bumpy start to begin with. I'm going to be back with more stories, guys. I'm going to be sharing them from all across the globe, from lots of different people, but also my journey as well. Thank you so much again for watching. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.